Now, this kind of individual will jealously guard his freedom to follow his own judgment, to make his own choices, and to enjoy the values and wealth he creates. To such an individual, the issue of his own perfectibility is a daily reality, which he will allow no one to usurp. To such an individual, the idea that he is sinful, or irrational, or a miserable creature, desperately in need of a superior to tell him what to do, has no reality. This kind of individual will allow no king or government to dictate his convictions or dispose of his fortune and life, not for any reason or to any degree. For the Founding Fathers, the motto, "Live free or die," had real meaning. Without freedom, they would be dead. Their mode of existence would be dead. Their unrelenting, unbowed pursuit of their own perfection would be dead. And so they fought. The Declaration of Independence was a declaration of self-esteem. It was a declaration of self-esteem. But the Founding Fathers' achievement is eroding. They would be shocked by the power that is now concentrated in the hands of the American government at the expense of the individual. Can you imagine Jefferson submitting to building inspectors who would decide if Monticello is up to code? Or pleading with FDA officials to take an experimental drug that, according to his scientific judgment, is beneficial? Or allowing Social Security administrators to dictate how much he has to save for his retirement and where he has to invest it? Or patiently watching the tax collector as he takes his money away and pours it down the aid drains of Africa? Can you imagine him prostrating himself before the FCC, who would determine if its broadcast content is obscene? Can you imagine Thomas Jefferson seeking the government's permission to smoke a cigarette in a restaurant, eat irradiated spinach, screw in an incandescent light bulb, or buy a trans fatty French fry? And yet today, Americans do not have the self-esteem to protest these usurpations of their judgment, their choice, their freedom. America's declaration of self-esteem has not taken full root. Why not? Now, although the core of self-esteem is an earned confidence in one's power to think and to produce, which Americans have earned in abundance, full self-esteem requires that one self-consciously value oneself. Full self-esteem requires that one know in explicit moral terms that one is good and why. This positive moral evaluation and self-evaluation, the Declaration of Independence does not fully provide, and the Founding Fathers could not provide. The European Enlightenment had promised to put morality on a rational, scientifically and mathematically precise foundation, but it could never deliver on its promise. And far too many of its intellectual leaders assumed that the content of morality would be essentially Christian morality, stripped of its mystical trappings and somehow defended by rational argument. The Founding Fathers agreed with the European intellectuals. Jefferson, for instance, made his own compilation of Jesus' teachings. Jefferson's compilation, which omits the miraculous from the New Testament, includes the Sermon on the Mount. Indeed, Jefferson in a letter refers to Jesus as, quote, the sublime preacher of the Sermon on the Mount, close quote. Now ask yourself this: does the Sermon on the Mount not indict Jefferson and the other Founding Fathers as evil? When the British struck America's right cheek, did Jefferson in the Declaration tell America to turn to offer them the left? Did Jefferson love his enemies, or did he go to war with them? Did Jefferson, who had a gallery of worthies in his home, portraits of men like Isaac Newton and John Locke, think that the blessed are the poor in spirit, or that the only people worthy of admiration are those who choose to make something of their spirit? Did Jefferson and the other founding fathers think that the meek shall inherit the earth, or that the rational and the industrious shall? Did Jefferson give up riches, or did he seek them? On every essential, the founding fathers did the opposite of what the sermon commands. And that's because the Sermon on the Mount is a declaration of war on self-esteem. It is a declaration of war on self-esteem. Anyone who has achieved anything and taken pride and joy in his accomplishments is condemned by Jesus. Woe unto you that are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe unto you that are full, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep. Well, who then has a right to feel good about themselves, according to the sermon? The meek and the poor in spirit, which means those who have little cause to esteem themselves. So you can look at America's history this way. The founding fathers created a new form of government and thereby opened up a continent to their kind of men of self-esteem, individuals who were ready to drop their backward cultures and work for a better future, individuals who valued themselves so highly that they sought the best for themselves and in themselves by coming to America. But the founding fathers left these people unable fully to understand or appreciate their own greatness, open to every form of abuse, and vulnerable to every sort of moral denunciation. And the denunciation soon came. The new country had exploded into an orgy of productiveness. Most responsible for this prosperity were men who had never had a chance to exist before, capitalists and industrialists. Oil, steel, new financial instruments, railroads, these and other innovations, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the J.P. Morgans, and the Vanderbilts, brought into the New World and taught men how to value. For this, they were denounced as robber barons. In essence, it was Jesus' voice rising against them. Woe unto you that are rich, for ye shall suffer. Woe unto you that build railroads and oil derricks, for ye shall mourn and weep. And more than just moral denunciations came. If America was to be the land of the ideal, as the founding fathers had promised, and if the ideal is in fact that the meek and the poor in spirit shall inherit the earth, then America's government needed drastic overhaul. All the new government powers, the alphabet soup of regulatory agencies that Jefferson would have rebelled against, were justified by attacking the men of self-esteem in the name of the meek and the wretched. For instance, what is the moral justification for the FDA's existence? Rich, greedy drug companies, i.e., those who discover and manufacture life-saving compounds, will exploit and experiment on hapless patients, so the government must oversee the company's every move. Besides, how can the meek be served unless the government, through its process of approvals and rejections, favors the kind of drugs the meek need? And how can the poor in spirit achieve blessedness if in their mindlessness they pop some pill that they should have known might kill them? So to protect the blessed from their own irrationality, we need wise government officials to tell everyone what pills they may and may not swallow. Or what is the moral justification for the creation of Social Security? To quote from the administration's website in an article about the history of Social Security, it is, quote, the government's duty to provide for the welfare of the poor, close quote. If a person is too meek to provide for his old age, then those who are richer should be forced to provide for his retirement. If a person is too ignorant or irresponsible to save for his own retirement, if he is that poor in spirit, then the government must step in and in his name strip everyone of control over their retirement plans. Or what was the moral justification for the income tax ratified in 1913? Soak the rich. Now, to all of this, to whatever form the sacrifice of men of self-esteem to men without self-esteem takes, Ayn Rand in Atlas Shrugged says, no more.